How do we use AI coding assistants to help us actually learn? How specifically are we going to use AI coding assistants to help us learn how to code for network automation? That's what this video is all about, and I apologize for this sound quality. It was either this or a really freaking loud mower outside. It's mom life, so you get what you get. It's free education. Also, I have ordered some better equipment for my on-the-go life, but you know, gotta get this out. So there is a lot that you can use AI coding assistants to learn, but there's some things that are very common use cases in terms of learning. And there are some actual caveats or deficits, weaknesses when it comes to using an AI coding assistant for learning. I'm gonna give you the nitty gritty, or I'm gonna give you the real deal, whatever, real talk. So the first thing that these AI coding assistants can be used for is to review the concepts that you previously learned in the other videos. So you have just learned, as practical as I could give it to you, but some theory, right? It was theory. And there's a big difference between knowing foundational concepts and being able to apply them to solve problems programmatically. And so what's going to happen is while you're trying to solve these problems, you're probably inevitably going to initially forget things that you learned, like what is a variable again, or what happens when I implement a for loop in this way? What kind of operations can I do on a list? Just like I am showing you over here. The good news is that when it comes to foundational concepts, I think AI coding assistants are pretty trustworthy, right? A lot of these foundational concepts are like textbook concepts, so it's a lot harder for the AI to get it wrong. The more complex things you are doing and theory you're getting into, I think that would be worth double checking. But again, there's a big difference between what is taught in textbooks and what it takes to actually build software. And this is something that you can be a-okay to learn from. And you can see what the response looks like over here, right? You might have went down Google rabbit holes when there was no AI and you were learning something. And I want you to consider this an AI rabbit hole. Go down the AI rabbit hole. I am not necessarily concerned when it comes to foundational concepts about you checking sources or like double checking what you're learning. I think you're pretty safe there. I think that what you need to care about is asking enough questions. So the AI coding assistant, for instance, I'm asking over here, what operations can I do on a list, right? And the responses you're going to get back are honestly very, very helpful, and it's way faster and more consolidated, comprehensive than it would be if you just Googled it. But you need to make sure that you ask enough questions. And sometimes asking questions is about comprehension, like, hey, I didn't quite get how it explained this. But sometimes it's a matter of making sure that you see all of the puzzle pieces so that you get all of the information that you should on a concept. The second great use of using AI assistants as a learning tool, coding assistants specifically, is when it comes to learning new libraries. So we talked about understanding libraries in a previous video in level 1. Go watch it if you haven't already. And that was important for you to just understand how libraries work and why we use them, right? Because once you get that in general, you can learn any library that you want. And there's a ton of them and they're gonna keep changing. And you don't want to just be like, oh, I know NetMiko, which is, I feel like in the network engineering community, I constantly hear, just wanting to master NetMiko. And I mean, that's obviously useful, but that's not really the mindset that you should be going about these things in if you want to be powerful and dangerous. So anyway, you can use AI coding assistants to determine what libraries are out there to achieve certain functions, right? So, hey, I'm trying to build this network automation where I connect to a Cisco Catalyst switch and then I, pull show commands. What library should I use for this? Or walk me through how I should think about solving this. In that case, it's probably going to give you NetMiko, right? But which is a network automation library that's very popular and used for connecting to devices that we're going to cover in this level. But it's nice because instead of having to Google or do word of mouth or having to just trial by fire learning libraries, you can just boom, 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 boom with a couple of questions instantly learn a lot of libraries. The one caveat I will give you to the library situation is that I don't know how much of a danger this is when learning versus generating code, but there's a big known security risk where AI will hallucinate libraries that don't actually exist. So I have not run into that problem when just asking questions, but I would double check the libraries that it provides you, that they actually exist. And not just that, but that they like have some use. We'll talk about security more in another video in this level as well, but just keep that in mind, right? Like if it's barely been downloaded or it doesn't have any reviews or it's not clear who made the library, maybe avoid that one. But for the most part, I have found it extremely, extremely useful. The third reason that AI coding assistants are really useful for learning, and this is going to be true for you basically always from now on, right? Because in this course, I have focused on teaching you how to think, not teaching you how to type, if that makes sense, syntax and other bullcrap. You've learned how to think. And so now that you have the foundations from level 1 and are continuing to practice those, in the future, when you want to learn new coding concepts or new ways of solving and approaching problems, you're going to use AI to learn that, and you're going to have the foundations you need to understand and evaluate the responses that are given, right? You're not totally lost in space navigating these responses from AI. You have some ground to stand on of your own. An example is that I believe in the next video, or at least one soon, we're going to talk about how to securely store and call on your API keys or other sensitive credentials. I'm going to show you how to use AI to learn that. I could teach it to you 100%, but the whole point of the course is empowering you to use AI to your advantage. Once you've practiced learning new concepts with AI a couple times, you get into kind of a rhythm of how to ask your questions, how many questions you need to ask to learn a concept. And don't let your learning stop at just an AI coding assistant if it's something you really care about mastering. It's still probably not better than like reading a book that someone's just put a ton of time and expertise into and curated for you. But this is a practical course. This is the quick and dirty version. What's been nice for me as a developer, and you guys will also experience this as you start your coding journey, even if it's network automation, right? Don't be frazzled by that distinction. But what you are going to find nice, because I find it nice, is that the learning is just unbounded now. So before, when I worked as a developer and in school, really everywhere, I would often solve the same types of problems using the same tools and tech stacks that I was already comfortable with because it just took so long to ramp up on a new language or tool or whatever. You're not gonna have that problem as much. And I remember a recent example that I didn't finish was that I was going to create an extension for a developer environment that used GitHub Copilot. And in this case, you had to use a language called TypeScript to do that. I don't know TypeScript. I know that it is the typed version of JavaScript, but I don't know much more than that. And I used AI coding assistants. I used GitHub Copilot to ramp on that in like a weekend. And then I'm building something completely new that would have taken me how long to learn before, I don't know. And think about it this way, guys. I am teaching this course using Python as the language, as the example language, but these coding fundamentals and this programmatic logic is going to take you wherever you want to go. If later you need to learn Bash or PowerShell at your company, you're going to have the tools at your disposal to learn those between your foundational knowledge and your ability to use an AI coding assistant to learn them. If Rust becomes a bigger thing, or if you just kind of segue into wanting to build some apps or build something else outside of automation, right? You have this foundation now. The last example I'm going to give as something useful in terms of learning with AI coding assistants, but it's not limited to this, right? I'm just kind of coming up with main categories for you, is using it to learn code that you've inherited. So once you are coding in a work environment or an enterprise environment, whatever, and it's not just your code, you're going to frequently run into the problem of you got to understand what that guy or that woman wrote. And that can be more of a pain than you think. It's not just, oh, I understand how to code now, so now when someone hands me something, I just magically understand it. Yes, you have the skills you need to understand it and to learn what it does and to actually learn it, not just guess. But, everyone can code things in different ways and everyone has different knowledge sets. And sometimes things are just done confusingly or in a way you wouldn't have done it. It also just takes time, right? Even if you're capable of doing it, it takes time to go through somebody's code, ramp up on it, see what works and doesn't work, see if your assumptions about the code base are true. And so AI can be used to summarize and get you up to speed and answer questions about code you've inherited. That's huge, okay? That is huge. Again, you're gonna experience that more as you share your code and work with others on code. But man, I'm sure as an engineer, or hopefully, I don't know if you're an engineer watching this, but if you're an engineer, you can relate to the hardest part of the job often being dealing with people. And yeah, dealing with other people's code is sometimes a lot harder than just knowing how to code something or solving a problem programmatically. Now, like I said, there are a few caveats you should know of when using these coding assistants. there's nuance, right? There's probably multiple caveats, but you're gonna learn them as we go through the course. I don't wanna bore you. 2 big caveats you wanna know about when starting this learning journey is first, just reiterating the fact that, sometimes it's wrong. Sometimes it hallucinates. Just asterisk, right? I mean, sometimes the things that you Googled were wrong too. Sometimes people didn't explain things well on their websites or in their forums. Sometimes you would copy code from Stack Overflow or Reddit or somewhere else on the internet, and the code wouldn't work or it would be insecure. So this is not really truly a new problem, but just keep that in mind that AI is not like this omnipotent being, okay? Number 2, big caveat is that AI typically can't answer questions that are highly product specific or proprietary knowledge. This is changing some. I remember back when I first started teaching GitHub Copilot 2 years ago, GitHub Copilot couldn't answer anything about like a Cisco product. It would just be flat out wrong and making up information. And that was the case even when I was asking questions that were part of public documentation, right? This wasn't gatekept in any way. However, as time has went on, they've made a lot of improvements to coding assistance, and that is one thing that I've seen improve massively, is that there is a lot better product-specific information out there. For instance, I used GitHub Copilot to learn how to use Docusaurus to build the exercises that I created for you guys for this course. So you may find that it is more accurate now for these really specific use cases, these specific products and services. It's just, I would double check because there is an architecture that people use. You don't need to know the nitty-gritty, but it's called RAG. And basically what people will do is they'll take this really specific knowledge base, like, I don't know, Cisco documentation on firepower, and it will essentially store that information in a database. And when the LLM provides you an answer, it will first reach out to the database to see what specialist knowledge it has on the subject. You don't need to know the nitty-gritty of that. Just be aware that there are ways to have AI more accurately solve these specific problems, but your coding assistant that hasn't been trained on, whatever products may or may not have the answer, or it may not be correct. Or it might be just fine. I mean, things are changing literally weekly. I can't stay on top of it. I don't think any of us can. All right, guys, now you know how you can start applying AI coding assistance to your learning journey without just cheating or generating the code. I hope that gives you an idea of a place to start, but of course, if you're still lost, it's fine. This course is long enough for you to learn it. And you're gonna get better. It's something that happens with time and practice. This is a skill, not something you just memorize. All right, see you in the next video. Take care.